Cool. All right.
It still needs to be done a little bit.
Oh, it's picky, picky, picky. There you go. Okay. Anyway. Yes. You didn't lock that in. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for being down here today. It is really such a fantastic pleasure to meet you finally. And I'd love to hear some of your stories on the X-15. I want to record them for posterity. So, if you could tell me a little bit about yourself to start, and then how you got onto the X-15, and just what it was like to be on the X-15 program.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you and Sheree this afternoon,
It's an honor.
and I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime. Well, I just to tell you a bit about my story. I use this thing I call a concept of the four C's, and I use the first two C's of that concept to introduce myself to audiences. And the first C is chance. Each of us showed up in this world by chance. Doesn't mean we're accidents. It simply means that we didn't have anything to say about being born. And each of us were born into certain circumstances. And the chance of our birth and the circumstance of our lives describe our past. So I'll just give you a little brief synopsis of my past. Some things about the chance of my birth are probably obvious. I was obviously born black and male. Some things you could probably guess. You could probably guess I was born almost 79 years ago. And you could probably also guess that I was born somewhere in the South, because I still got a draw, y'all. What you can't know is I was born in September 1939 to hard-working parents, uneducated even by the standards of that day. I was the second born of what would become 5 siblings. I was the only male child. And I loved school from the first day, so much so that I went to summer school a couple of times, elementary school, and I caught my older sister in the 7th grade. And we went to junior high and high school together, graduated in the same class. Because of my parents' education, or lack thereof, they were very proud of the fact that we finished high school, because neither one of them had had the chance. And at commencement, they lined the boys up in one row and the girls in the other by height. And it just turns out my sister and I were the same number from the front of the pack, so we marched down the aisle at commencement side by side. Well, she decided to get married after high school. I went to college, so I was a 15-year-old college student. Wanted to be an architect, but no black schools were offering architecture in Florida at the time, so I took the next best thing, mathematics. And so I got my degree in mathematics in 4 years, so I wanted to stay in Florida because as a 19-year-old, I wasn't sure I wanted to move too far from home. But I couldn't get a job in the South, and so I decided to go west. And the first offer I got was from NASA High-Speed Flight Station, Edwards, California. So I arrived in Lancaster, California 59 years ago today, August 30th, 1959.
Perfect timing.
And they offered me a job as an aeronautical research engineer. I didn't know what that was, but I figured they think I can do it. I'm giving it a shot. Afraid to fly, so I took the train out and arrived in that town on the date I cited. First day at work was really a great experience because I saw my first computer. I got a tour of the place, and they took me in the computer room, and we had an IBM 650 with an 8K core.
Oh,
Lots of tape recorders and lots of card readers and key punch machines and all of the gadgets you had to have with that small a memory. And I got put in a simulation. Well, I had been led to believe that an education in the black schools was inferior. So I thought I had a lot of catching up to do. So the first few weeks of my NASA career was spent at work, then taking books home. After work, I was a bachelor at the time, and studying at night, and then writing down questions I had about the materials I was reading, because I had to learn aeronautical engineering. And then the first thing the next morning, I go into my boss's office. His name was J.L. Samuels. I go into his office and ask the questions I had when I was reading. And after a few weeks, I realized that I didn't have to catch up, I was already up. Because I was working with people who come from the finest engineering schools in the country, so I thought I was certainly behind, but I realized I wasn't. And so 6 weeks into my career, JL called me into his office and said, I've got this simulator I want you to build. I said, okay, what? I want you to build an orbital rendezvous simulator. We need to simulate two bodies orbiting in space and rendezvous. I said, huh? He said, you can do this. I will assign you a technician, and the technician he assigned to me was Dick Music. And so Dick went to work building the hardware. I went to work building the analog simulation. And we came up with the funniest looking contraption you've ever seen. Because he had decided we needed a visual presentation of attitude and distance. So he put together this contraption of a cylindrical screen, a servo-driven aperture on a slide projector, and a servo-driven mirror. And I decided we needed a control stick, and we needed an instrument panel. So he built an instrument panel with these analog meters on it, and we took a regular office chair with an arm, and we put a control stick on that sucker. Then we decided, well, we better put a stick in the middle so that the pilot can do like they do in airplanes. So we turned up one of those government-issue metal wastebasket and mounted a stick on it. So once we were ready, or we thought we were, we said, okay, we're done. No self-respecting pilot is going to sit in this contraption. And the thing that was interesting is once we told the pilot's office that this simulator was ready, real pilots came and sat in that contraption and practiced for hours. And of course, early on, they were moving too fast when they wanted to do, so they crashed. But they finally got the feel of the system, and they were able to see as the aperture got, as the spot on the screen got bigger, they realized they were in closer, they could slow down. And so that was my first independently built simulator. And I realized that I was able to translate my math education into effective engineering work. And so I had that keynote speech in Colorado, this title of which was Leadership Lessons from the Race to Space. And the first lesson I mentioned in that speech was sometimes leaders have to believe in their people before their people believe in themselves. In that case, JL knew I was capable of doing what he was asking me to do. I just didn't know it. I learned in the process that I could do it too. And then that proved to myself that I was ready to join the crew. Okay. And I think the next simulator I got was supersonic transport. That was when we were talking about supersonic transport. So I was to build a simulator that would simulate supersonic cruise across the pond. And so I built that thing, and pilots would come and sit there and see the altitude climb as the weight let off, the altitude climb, the speed increase, and we would, I don't remember the outcome of all that.
Did you use another trash can?
No. We got sophisticated.
Okay.
And so I had various other projects that I worked on, building the simulator in terms of the analog programming. Then my first big job was the X-15. I got assigned to be the project manager for the X-15 simulator. Well, I knew that the X-15 was the biggest project we had. This is probably the most important work I'll ever do at NASA. And my boss thought I was ready for this. Everybody in the building thought I was ready for this. So I ended up having to write the program. And in analog world, that meant come up with all of these connections between components on this analog computer. Amplifiers, servo resolvers, servo multipliers, potentiometers, all of this stuff. And the patch cord patch board had all these holes in it. And so I had to plug all of these patch cords into all of these holes, connect all of these components accurately. So you had volumes of paper describing the system. And we had 3 such consoles. And there was an Iron Bird simulator down in the hangar. It was connected by cable to the computer room, which was upstairs. And the Iron Bird was there to simulate the dynamics of the control surfaces. And the hydraulic system, all that, we had all of that stuff on the Iron Bird. And so my job was to make sure all that stuff worked. So once we were satisfied that it was ready for human consumption, we called the pilots in. And of course, they would practice for hours and hours and hours on that thing. And so my job every day was to fly the test profiles. If we were preparing for a high-speed flight, we had a high-speed trajectory that we flew until it was true to what the WinTOL said it should do. Then we'd call the pilots down to practice. And then they would practice for hours and hours until they got ready to fly. And then once they were satisfied they had practiced enough, then we would have the pre-flight briefing. They'd schedule a flight, have a pre-flight briefing. They'd go fly. As soon as they took off their pressure suits, we show up and have a post-flight debriefing. How true was the simulator to what you experienced in the air? If it was true, and in most cases it was, then we got ready for the next flight. If it wasn't true, well, we got a problem because some of these coefficients aren't accurate. And so it ended up being a wonderful and exciting journey to support such important work at such a young age, because I'm in my early 20s by now. And I'm depending on to make sure that we minimize the risk of a catastrophe. And what we knew at the time, and what Bickle knew probably better than us, that in R&D you can't eliminate the risk. You can only minimize the risk. So we did everything we could to minimize the risk. And as soon as we were on the ground, pilots back safely, then we figured out what happened. Did we have any surprises? What didn't work the way we expected to work? Those kinds of things. So we learned as we went. But each of us depending on each other of us to do our jobs as well as we could. And so that was a part of the joy of being at NASA during that period, is that we all depended on each other. Nobody was superfluous to our needs. The guy who swept the hangar floor was just as important as the guy who flew the airplane, because that work was important, and everybody felt that commitment to do it as well as they could. And so that was probably the most exciting part of my NASA experience, because it lasted longest. And the lesson I learned from that, and the lesson I shared in that keynote, was leaders make sure there are clear expectations and accountability. There was no question what Bickle expected me to do, and there was no question I would be subject to the Bickle barrel if I didn't. So, but that was exciting to me, even as a youngster. I know what I got to do, and I know if I don't, I'm going to have to pay a price. But that's okay, because I knew that everybody who supported us in that project was going to do their best work. Sometimes we're going to do it well, sometimes not. But the good news is, in most cases, we did it well.
I mean, so many of the guys in that era, both X-15 and Apollo, very young. I mean, the people who flew us to the moon, they were, you think of these guys that are 50, 60 years old, they have all these years of wisdom. And it's like, no, it's the young kids and stuff. And you were a young kid then.
Right.
You were surrounded by young kids. Bickle was probably the oldest guy anybody'd seen.
Right.
I have a question. You say there was an Iron Bird
Yeah, that's the
somewhere.
simulator.
What is an Iron Bird as compared to what you were building?
Well, the Iron Bird was a replica, physically speaking and dimensionally speaking, of the X-15 itself.
No,
The simulator was the same length, had the same hydraulic system, the same cockpit as the airplane. What it didn't have was a skin and the surfaces and that kind of stuff.
And a coffee cup holder.
But I don't think we let the pilots carry coffee in their cockpit. There was not enough room.
We have
Oh,
a
yeah.
picture. We have a picture.
Oh, somebody's sneaky.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody is sneaky.
Joe Walker, I believe it is, actually.
Okay. But yeah, it was just an exciting time, and I think that the results proved that it was a very successful part of NASA's journey, especially at what is now known as Armstrong Flight Research Center. It went from High Speed Flight Station to Dryden Flight Research Center to Armstrong now.
How do you think Armstrong would feel about that?
He was a modest man. The thing about Neil was he never leveraged his fame. He left NASA and went to teach engineering at the University of Cincinnati, and he just stayed out of the limelight. That's the way he was when he was out here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but is his daughter still buried out here, or did he have her
I'm not sure.
body moved?
I think she's still out here.
Yeah, I think she's out here, but he lived up in Juniper Hills, very primitive lifestyle, drove raggedy old cars.
Yeah.
Just a great guy. He was just a great guy, modest,
Yeah.
because he was I think he was a flight test engineer when I showed up. I think he moved to the pilot's office after I arrived, I think. But he was just one of the guys, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was chosen to be the first to land on the moon didn't change the person he was.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was still Neil Armstrong, just a simple guy
Oh yeah.
doing his bidding.
Yeah. Can you tell me some about Paul Bickle? Tell me what you think about Paul Bickle, and I definitely want to hear a little bit more about the Bickle barrel.
Well, Paul was unique in my experience. And as you might know, I do leadership development consulting now. And I think some of the most valuable lessons I learned about leadership was from Paul, because he was unique in my experience. He understood the importance of knowing the people you're trying to inspire. He also understood that inspiration is not about position, it's about behavior. Okay? And so the fact that he had the biggest office in the building, the nicest furniture, the nicest view, didn't matter as much to him as he knew the people he was trying to inspire and knew what would likely inspire them to give their best in his service. He was one of the boys. You didn't go to his office, most of the time he wouldn't be there, because he'd be hanging out down in the machine shop or in the lab, or hanging out in the hall talking to folks like me who should have been working. And so the thing about his leadership approach was that it was personal to him. It was really important to him that he let everybody know that they're going to have every chance to be successful under his leadership. Okay? And so, like I said earlier, he knew that there were no guarantees. We just had to work our butts off to minimize the risk of a problem. And if we misjudged something and something went wrong, he was not at all reluctant to let you know. And so we used to say, man, you mess up, you're going to get in the Bickle barrel. And that means that he was going to call you out. And it wasn't vindictive. Nobody was embarrassed by it, because we knew that it was his job to satisfy his bosses, and we weren't going to let him down. And if we messed up, we owned it. There was no finger point. You know, we didn't tell him, no, it wasn't my fault. No, I own it. I should have known, or I neglected to do something or whatever. And like I said, no mistake was fatal unless you repeated it too often. But he would help you get up after he smacked you around, and he would ask you, what do you need to do to try the next thing? Don't try that again, because you know that's not going to work.
That's right.
But what do you need? How much money you need? How much time? How many people? And he just trusted us to tell him the truth. And I don't think any of us would have dared lie to him knowingly. You know, we might not have had our facts right. But just to walk up to Bickle and tell him a bald-faced lie, that wasn't happening in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so I think that we just had a wonderful community, very young in most cases, very excited, very talented folk. I don't know how I snuck in, but they were able to attract the best and the brightest. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to see what leadership looks like and see what people who are effectively led can do. See what they can accomplish well beyond their fondest dreams. But it was almost commonplace. We were expected to perform miracle after miracle, day in and day out, and we did. And everybody was a key player. There was no just secretary or just janitor. There was a secretary, there's a janitor, there's an engineer, there's a pilot, there's a mechanic, there's an electrician, so what?
And it's so different than today when, your delineation on your work is so very specific. It's like, I'm not going to touch that. That's not my job. But that was what you experienced in the X-15, right? Was, if somebody could help somebody else, they would jump in. Or you could ask somebody and they would jump in. Is that what you experienced there?
Yeah, it was everybody's job because we all felt responsible for helping Kennedy live up to his promise. And we know what role the X-15 played in helping us get there. And so we were going to make sure that we weren't the ones who made a liar out of him. So, but I've just never seen that kind of focus on a mission as we had in the 60s at Dryden. It was just a wonderful place to be. Like I said, that's probably the most exciting period of my professional career, was working on the X-15 during that time, because I worked with the best and the brightest folks I could even imagine. And we were all just folks trying to do a job. And it was never just a job to any of us. It was always a mission. It was a passion. And that's why my wife wouldn't even go to social functions with me with NASA, because social function meant we were going to be talking about airplanes and computers. She was a teacher. She didn't want to hear about that stuff. So she said, no thank you, you don't have to invite me to that flight party. But we lived our jobs, and that may be good news or bad news, but it was just the way it was. And we were never very far away from the next thing we had to do.
You're talking about the parties, whatever. Were you part of the groups that hung out at places like Juanita's?
Of course.
Was that still going on? Okay.
Oh yeah, Juanita's was where we started, then we moved to the Longhorn.
Okay.
On 1 Avenue I.
Yeah.
But what thing that was funny about Juanita's, it was a Roseman. Of course, you drank a couple kegs of beer. The folks driving down Sierra Highway weren't too sober.
Yeah.
But back in the day, if the highway patrolman or cops, I don't remember which it was at the time, saw you weaving on the highway, they would just escort you home, make sure you got home safely. Well, now you get a DUI.
Yeah.
Well, it was a small town, and they knew about the X-15. They knew we were celebrating some victory.
Oh yeah.
And so it may be part of the reason. I don't know, Juanita's might have closed or whatever, but we moved it closer to Lancaster, so we started having these parties over at the Longhorn.
Okay.
And so we go over there, buy a couple of kegs of beer, and celebrate whatever it was we did that day. And it didn't have to be a major breakthrough. Hell, if we expanded the envelope by 0.2 of a Mach number, that's a reason to celebrate.
Yeah. Is Longhorn still there?
I don't know. I haven't been on that side of Avenue I, because it's just east of, I think it was just east of 10th Street East.
Okay.
I think. I don't remember. I know it's on the north side of Avenue I.
Okay.
It's a little
Let's
indoor
look it up
outdoor
and see if
joint.
it's still there. I know the building, I'm pretty sure the building for Juanita's is still there, but it's something else now.
It's something else now, because it was on the north side of Rosemont Boulevard. And yeah, so we found joints to hang out at.
Oh yeah.
And we didn't need much of a reason to celebrate.
Yes. Well, yeah, it's like Scotty would talk about, it's like every time it was a successful flight, let's go have a party.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
Oh yeah.
And another thing that was, I don't know, it might not have been unique, but it was unique in my experience. We had very public award ceremonies. They set up a stage in the hangar, and everybody would show up. And then there would be very public announcement of the awards. Some of them were raises, some of them were cash awards, some of them were just certificates. group achievement awards, individual awards, that kind of stuff. And there was no jealousy among the employees because they didn't get one. They didn't bemoan the fact that they didn't get one, or they didn't get jealous of the person who did. We just knew that whoever got the cash award was going to buy the beer.
It's probably better if you didn't get the cash award. The cash award would probably
Because
cost
the
you
cash
money.
awards in that day weren't big, you know. A big award was $250, you know.
Yeah.
Lunch is on you.
Oh yeah. And then it would show up in the NASA Express.
Oh yeah, your picture would be in the paper, and
Oh, yeah.
Bickle would be handing out the awards, and there were no secrets.
Yeah.
I have clients who tell me we don't let other people know who makes what in the organization because that's a secret. But no, it's not. You
Yeah.
just delude yourself into thinking it is. And the easiest thing to do is be fair. That's what Bickle was. The whole process of deciding who's going to get an award was a very open and fair process. So you don't have to keep secrets if you lay your cards on the table face up, because everybody can see them.
Yeah.
We knew what the criteria were.
Right.
We knew who was going to be sitting on the panels to decide. There were no secrets. So when it came out, nobody was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, that like I say, that's unique in my experience. In all the organizations I've been in consulting and since, I've never seen as creative a leadership environment as Bickle created at Dryden.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in some major organizations in these 30-some years I've been consulting.
Yeah.
And he did it better than anybody I've seen since.
Yeah. Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Right
It
person.
was a blessing to have been able to experience that.
Yeah.
Because when I go in talking about what leadership is, I know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
I didn't read it in a book.
Yeah.
I lived it.
Yeah. When you got somebody like Bickle as your mentor, or the person in charge who was the example for everybody, it's a great example of how to lead.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Now when you came in, Bickle was already in charge. Walt Williams had already left, right?
I think I came in right at the end of Walt Williams'
Okay.
tenure.
Okay.
I think he was still the center director, and Bickle followed him shortly.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And then I think Bickle's deputy was D. Beeler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he was in charge shortly, for a short period of time, I think,
Mm-hmm.
after Bickle left. And I think Lee Shear
Yeah.
followed Bickle for the longer term.
Okay.
And then Dave Scott, I think, was after that.
Yeah.
And Ike Gillum. Ike Gillum was the center director when I left.
Okay. Okay. Now, running the simulator. First of all, did you get to fly it yourself too? You had to check it out. So you got.
Oh yeah. I was.
So you're an X-15 pilot as well.
I was an ace, man.
There you go.
I never made mistakes. I never crashed that thing.
Of course.
Now, one of the things about that era too was